The year was 260 BCE, and Rome, traditionally a land-based power with no significant naval experience, found itself drawn into a bitter struggle for supremacy over the Mediterranean. Carthage, the dominant naval power of the age, had long ruled the seas, but Rome was determined to challenge this status quo. The conflict that would unfold was the First Punic War, and the first major clash between these two rising powers occurred off the coast of Sicily at the Battle of Mylae. Carthage, with its centuries of experience in naval warfare, had assembled a fleet of approximately 130 warships. These ships, known as quinquiremes, were massive and designed for ramming and boarding actions. The Carthaginians were confident in their superiority at sea, knowing that Rome had little to no experience with naval battles. They expected an easy victory, but they were about to face a surprise from an unlikely source. Rome, with its remarkable ability to adapt and innovate, had built a fleet of 145 ships to confront Carthage. This was no small feat for a republic that had no tradition of naval warfare. The Romans knew that they had to make a bold move to compensate for their lack of experience. They turned to a revolutionary invention, the corvus. The corvus was a boarding bridge with a heavy spike that could latch onto enemy ships, turning sea battles into brutal hand-to-hand combat on the decks. This innovation was a game-changer, and it would allow Rome to turn the tides of naval warfare. The battle began with the two fleets closing in on each other. As the Carthaginian ships approached, confident in their ability to dominate, they were met with a Roman fleet that was ready to fight not with traditional naval tactics, but with the corvus. The moment the two fleets came within range, the Roman ships launched the corvus onto the Carthaginian vessels. The Romans, with their superior discipline and training in close combat, surged across the bridges, overwhelming the Carthaginians in hand-to-hand combat. The battle was not won through traditional naval ramming or maneuvering. Instead, it was a brutal, close-quarters struggle that played to the strengths of the Roman army. Ship after ship fell to the Romans, not through superior naval tactics, but through overwhelming force on the decks. The Romans used their infantry skills to dominate the Carthaginians, and the result was nothing short of a stunning upset. By the end of the battle, Carthage had lost around 50 ships, with 30 captured intact. The Romans, however, had only lost 11 ships, an incredible feat for a fleet that had no prior experience in major naval engagements. The victory at Mylae was more than just a tactical triumph. It was a symbolic turning point in the First Punic War. Rome, a land-based power with little naval tradition, had demonstrated that it could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest maritime empire of the age. This victory had profound psychological effects both in Rome and Carthage. For Rome, it was a moment of immense pride. They had proven that they could challenge Carthage's dominance at sea, and they had done so with remarkable efficiency. For Carthage, the loss was a devastating blow. The confidence they had placed in their naval superiority had been shattered, and it was clear that Rome was a new force to be reckoned with. The victory at Mylae also set the stage for further naval confrontations between Rome and Carthage. With its newfound naval capabilities, Rome would go on to win a series of decisive naval victories, including the Battle of Cape Acnomus, which would further solidify its position as a Mediterranean power. The victory at Mylae was a crucial first step in Rome's transformation into a naval power, and it marked the beginning of a new era in Mediterranean history. The aftermath of Mylae also had significant political and cultural ramifications. Gaius Duilius, the Roman commander who led the fleet, was hailed as a hero. He became the first Roman to celebrate a naval triumph, a grand procession that honored his victory. To commemorate the battle, a rostral column was erected in the Roman Forum, adorned with the bronze rams of captured Carthaginian ships. This monument would stand as a lasting symbol of Rome's newfound naval power and its ability to rise to challenges that seemed insurmountable. The Battle of Mylae, was not just a tactical victory, it was a statement. It was a declaration to Carthage and the world that Rome was now a force to be reckoned with on the seas, no longer just a land power. Rome had proven that it could dominate the Mediterranean. This victory marked the beginning of Rome's rise to naval supremacy and set the stage for its eventual conquest of the entire Mediterranean world. The year was 260 BCE, and the conflict that would shape the future of the Mediterranean world was in full swing. The First Punic War had begun, pitting two rising powers against one another: Rome, a young republic with little naval experience, and Carthage, a centuries-old maritime empire with a dominant naval presence. At stake was the control of the Mediterranean, a battle for dominance over trade routes, resources, and strategic islands. Carthage, the established naval powerhouse, had long commanded the seas with its impressive fleet of quinquiremes, large warships with 5 rows of oars, perfect for both ramming and boarding tactics. The Carthaginian navy, with its seasoned sailors and experienced commanders, had successfully dominated naval warfare for decades. Rome, on the other hand, was a land-based power with no significant naval history. Although Rome had faced various challenges, it had never before engaged in a large-scale naval battle. Rome's military strength had always been its disciplined infantry, and it relied on its legions to secure victories. But with the Carthaginians threatening to take control of Sicily, Rome had no choice but to adapt or risk losing its strategic foothold in the Mediterranean. Rome's leaders knew that they had to quickly build a navy to challenge Carthage. It was a daunting task, as they had no experience in shipbuilding or naval tactics. However, the Romans were known for their adaptability, and within a short period, they managed to construct a fleet of about 145 ships, many of which were modeled after a captured Carthaginian quinquireme. The Romans also innovated by introducing the corvus, a boarding device that could turn naval engagements into brutal infantry fights. The corvus was a bridge with a heavy spike that could be dropped onto the enemy's deck, allowing Roman soldiers to board enemy ships and engage in hand-to-hand combat. This innovation was designed to counter Carthage's naval superiority by shifting the fight to the realm of infantry, where Rome excelled. Rome's first major naval engagement came at the Battle of Mylae, off the coast of Sicily, where the two fleets would meet for a confrontation that would change the course of the war. The Carthaginians, under the command of the experienced Hanno, had brought their fleet of 130 ships to challenge Rome's newly assembled force. The Carthaginians were confident, after all, they had dominated the seas for centuries and had never faced a power like Rome at sea. Hanno believed that the Carthaginian superiority in naval warfare would be enough to crush the Roman upstart. The battle began with the two fleets closing in on each other, the Carthaginian ships in their familiar formations and the Roman ships ready for their first real test. Gaius Duilius, the Roman commander, had no prior experience in naval warfare, but he was determined to prove that Rome could stand toe-to-toe with the Carthaginians. His strategy was simple but bold: to use the corvus to board the Carthaginian ships and turn the battle into a test of Roman discipline and close combat skills. As the battle unfolded, the Romans executed their strategy with remarkable precision. The Carthaginians, expecting a traditional naval battle of ramming and maneuvering, were caught off guard when the corvus devices dropped onto their ships. The Roman marines surged across the boarding bridges, overwhelming the Carthaginian crews with their superior training in hand-to-hand combat. Unlike the Carthaginians, who relied on their naval tactics, the Romans used their infantry skills to defeat the Carthaginians on their own decks. The corvus proved to be the game-changer. While the Carthaginians had the upper hand in terms of ship size and maneuverability, they were not prepared for the brutality of Roman boarding tactics. The battle quickly turned into a close-quarters conflict, and the Carthaginians, who had no experience in hand-to-hand combat at sea, found themselves at a disadvantage. One by one, the Roman ships boarded the Carthaginian vessels, and the battle became a slaughter rather than a traditional naval engagement. By the end of the battle, the Romans had captured 30 Carthaginian ships intact, while Carthage lost a total of 50 ships. Rome, on the other hand, had only lost 11 ships, a remarkable feat for a navy that had never before engaged in a major sea battle. Polybius, the ancient historian, described the psychological impact of the victory, noting that the Romans had not only defeated the Carthaginians but had done so in a manner that shattered the myth of Carthaginian naval invincibility. The Battle of Mylae was a monumental victory for Rome, not just for its tactical brilliance, but for its sheer audacity. The Romans had proven that they could challenge the greatest naval power of the age, and they had done so with an innovative strategy that played to their strengths. This victory sent shockwaves through the Mediterranean world, signaling that Rome was a new force to be reckoned with, both on land and at sea. The consequences of the Roman victory at Mylae were far-reaching. The victory boosted Roman morale and solidified the Roman navy as a formidable force in the Mediterranean. It also had a profound psychological impact on Carthage. The Carthaginian navy, which had long been the undisputed ruler of the seas, was humbled by a relatively inexperienced Roman fleet. The defeat forced Carthage to reevaluate its naval strategy and prompted them to strengthen their own naval forces in the wake of their loss. For Rome, the victory at Mylae was more than just a tactical success. It was a statement of power. It demonstrated that Rome, despite its lack of naval experience, could stand up to the most powerful naval empire in the world. The victory also marked the beginning of Rome's rise as a dominant Mediterranean power, and it set the stage for future naval battles that would ultimately lead to Rome's control over the entire Mediterranean. The battle also had significant political ramifications. Gaius Duilius, the Roman commander, became a hero in Rome, celebrated for his leadership and innovative tactics. He was the first Roman general to celebrate a naval triumph, a rare honor in the Roman Republic. To commemorate the victory, a rostral column was erected in the Roman Forum, adorned with the bronze rams of the captured Carthaginian ships. This column became a lasting symbol of Roman naval power and served as a reminder of the Republic's ability to adapt and overcome challenges. The Battle of Mylae was a pivotal moment in the First Punic War. It demonstrated Rome's potential as a naval power and marked the beginning of its dominance in the Mediterranean. The victory at Mylae, coupled with the subsequent victories at Cape Nomus and the eventual defeat of Carthage, would establish Rome as the undisputed power of the Mediterranean for centuries to come. The lesson from Mylae was clear. Even the greatest powers could be toppled by innovation, courage, and discipline. Rome had shown that it was more than capable of challenging the might of Carthage, and it was only a matter of time before it would take its place at the top of the Mediterranean world.